You know, I know there was a lot of questions as far as, you know, the Joint Economic and Community Development Board, but, you know, this is truly when the city and the county, they do sit down together, and they do share a lot of information. And I'm sorry, I knew Chris Schubler had a conflict and wasn't able to make it. I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully nothing bad with Jim coming, but I've already met with John and Chris several times, and we're making sure that any development going on in the county, whether it's retail, industrial, and questions coming up, basically we're all on the same page. And just like with this comprehensive planning that the city's going to go through, you know, we're going to be a supportive role. Of course, you know, that's part of what our charge is to do the long-range planning. So we're just going to help John and the city try to get that put in place. So I mean, it's really a good time for us to do things together. So anyhow, I just want to say again, March 13th at 7:30. It's actually going to be in this room. TVA is going to come with their some of the retail planning, and it's just they're just calling it upping your game plan with customer analytics and insights. And it's going to be the retail development specialist with TVA coming in, basically talking to the existing retailers and teaching them how to better reach their markets. But it's also going to start us on a retail development plan, if you will, so we can start identifying what surplus retail we have, where are we deficient, which is what's going to point out to what's considered leakage. And this is where we're basically, if we've got a potential of making $50 million worth of retail sell in Elizabethton, but then there's $106 million actually being sold because they're going to other places, then we're showing that we're deficient somewhere. What we can do is start targeting where are we deficient. Is it in, you know, the home fix-up type stores? Is it the sporting goods? Is it hamburger joints? I mean, is it, you know, where are we leaking what we can actually be capturing and keeping here, which of course then generates the sales tax revenue. And you know, we talked about, and I think you know, Chris Kennedy talked about people building schools in other cities. That we should be generating the tax revenue here to build the schools here. So, you know, just as an example, say we find out that everybody's going somewhere else to eat burgers. TVA will provide you with lists of what does it take to get, you know, we've got McDonald's, but what else is out there? The Five Guys, that type of stuff. It shows what type of demographic, what has to be within 1 mile of their store, what type of stores do they like, what kind of traffic counts do they like. It gives us a lot of data, plus the contact information of the person responsible for locating the new stores. So as we develop this, as we develop this plan, TVA has got this monster database, this Buxton system that we will be tapping into again and again and again. So that is part of what our, they gave us this one report. They basically just did a pinpoint. This one was on Cherokee Drive, but we've got tons of demographics, plus it shows shopping characteristics within 5 miles of this one pinpoint. Basically, who's got what professions, how much money are they spending. It's going to be very, very valuable to our local retailers. So I'm hoping that we have a pretty good turnout on the 13th at 7:30 a.m. 7:30 a.m. in this room. We talked about the industrial site development. I'm not going to talk about where or who or anything like that, but we have struck a preliminary deal with one property owner that's going to allow us access to get in. And this will be a multi-jurisdictional thing, which could potentially include surrounding counties and a couple other cities, to where we can not just have a piece of ground to sell that we can control. Because I have a horror story that just happened recently about trying to put in for requests for proposals from an industry that was looking. Of course, we're looking nationwide, but we didn't control land, so we really could not give a good proposal. So as we move forward, we've identified the site. We got to work out the details where we can actually control it through either the bond board or even this board. And I've also contacted a company that's willing to build a spec building on it. So given right now with some of the trends that we're looking at as far as some of the reshoring and some things that are coming back, they're being able to choose. It's like, all right, say some of the furniture companies, there are some furniture companies coming back. They're seeing being on the Pacific Rim because of how much it costs to transport all this stuff back here. They want to be closer to their markets, but they're not necessarily going to go to Hickory. They're going to go next to some interstate. They're going to go next to some community that's got a building that they can move into and be in operation very soon. Some of the problems we have here right now, not just us, but say Washington County, we don't have a building that's got the proper ceiling heights.
What's ceiling height?
Minimum 24 feet, sometimes up to 30.
That would eliminate Borla.
Yeah, oh yeah, see, Borla's been off the books for a lot of industrial because it does not have those ceiling heights. And we just don't have anything suitable. We do have one building, but it doesn't have a consistent 24, and it doesn't have the span. Sometimes they're 18 to 22, and that knocks us out. The best building they've got with 24-foot ceiling heights, like in Washington County, is a 55-year-old building. So, you know, we're literally selling out of an empty wagon. So if we get this site, get it developed, and more than likely before the construction is completed, a spec building, we'll probably have a prospect. Because what they're looking for is a 50 to 60,000 square foot building that could be doubled in size fairly quickly. So, and if we do locate it where it makes logistical sense, say along the interstate, that's going to help us out quite a bit. So of course those are some of the things that we're looking at. But given some of the supply chains and some of the things going on in Chattanooga, Georgia, you know, even Mississippi and Alabama, with some of this automotive, we actually are positioned pretty well, and we're not too far from a port of entry down in Charleston. So we can take advantage of that corridor. So that is something that we're putting together, and again, we're kind of setting up a development partnership with our neighbors. So we all stand to gain. So that's something that's going on right now. The Anti-Drug Coalition, they have had several meetings, and now they're breaking down into some subgroups that are going to target mainly their specific areas, whether it's healthcare, whether it's counseling, whether it's education, or whether it's recovery. And then also there's going to be a group about financial. We look to the TLC Center to actually start taking a lead role in helping grow this organization. But this in this next month, these subcommittees will be meeting and kind of coming back with some better direction so we can get a good identity in the drug coalition. But it is still going, it's still very viable, and I think you know, addressing especially a lot of the stuff that's in the media right now, I think this coalition will be able to address some of these issues very quickly. The riverfront planning, I know we talked about that quite a bit. We've had to postpone actually 2 meetings with some of the local property owners. It's just kind of hard to get everybody, if they're all in country at the same time, they're in different parts of the country, so it's really kind of difficult to get these people all together, but we are shooting for next month. And these are people that actually own land that do want to develop it. They just want some guidance on how to develop it. But on the same part, we have to work very closely with the city, because if we start to say develop a bunch of living units over near the river, you think of the traffic situation, and John was here, he'd be able to speak to it very clearly. We cannot keep funneling traffic into that part of Broad and Elk. It's just as jammed up as it is. So we have to mitigate that. We have to have some traffic studies and some other things to help change some of those patterns, which will then allow us to develop that riverfront better. So that is something that we're doing there. Working with about 4 different entrepreneurs right now, which is kind of interesting. I love doing that. So these are people with a fire in their belly wanting to get started and get a job, and of course they have no money, but they have really good ideas. So working with them on some business plans and trying to get it to where it'll make a lot of sense, where they could either go to SBA for loan guarantee, or maybe even go to a commercial lender, and if they have some sort of collateral, be able to borrow money to get started. And then lastly, the Art Council. This is when John Moore, he talked to us. what they are doing right now is currently putting the paperwork together to get their own 501c3. In the meantime, they'll be operating under the auspices of the First Tennessee Private Industry Council, which is the Workforce Development Complex, but it is a charitable organization, which is the 501c3 designation. So John is looking to procure some, I guess, donations to kind of help them get started with renovating the old Walmart and repurposing it into an art center. So we're looking forward to that. He's got a steering committee in place. So this money, it'll just be a pass-through. I mean, essentially it'll be a complete paper trail, but the money the check may be written to the Private Industry Council, but it'll be for use as the Arts Council. So that is something that, Kim will be running through, but the money will be spent by that steering committee, not by this board. So again, it's just a pass-through, but we'll have a report on that.